Hey everybody, sorry about that. Um, yeah, I just had a little bit of a mess up there. But here, I'm doing another adaptation list, and you'll be seeing this hopefully on Thanksgiving. This is, uh, and there's a lot of adaptation lists here on the Tiermaker of A Christmas Carol. Some though, some are mostly what you will see on here, I should say, but there's a few exceptions. And here, like as it says in the title, it's an adaptation of Christmas Carol, ranked from best to good. There's no worst or anything, and which is basically saying that they're all decent. It's just that some I would consider like at the very top being the best. Like you could watch them almost every other day or every day during the holiday season, and you wouldn't get bored with them. So here's how the ranking works. We have best, we have great, semi-great, above good, and good. And I know it's a little hard for people to look at that way, but that's how I'm going to rank them because, again, they're all decent. There's no bad ones here. So, everyone's pretty much a winner. But like I said, the best is it's basically the ones that are considered watchable day after day, almost back to back, perhaps if you're in that kind of mood during the Christmas season, holiday season. Anyway, here is the pictures here of most of them. As you can tell, you probably recognize some of them. So let's start this off, shall we? Let's start off with good, and good to me is the Rankin Bass adaptation, The Stingiest Man in Town. And The Stingiest Man in Town is actually adapted from the musical of the same name, and it pretty much follows the musical word for word, song for song, and it does it in a short, I would say 22, 45-minute time limit, which is pretty cool for any adaptation, animated or live action, to do that of a musical show. So that's all right. That's good. Kind of cool with that. And it is a good one. You don't have to watch it, every day. You could watch it like maybe every other day. I would put it this way. Good is basically, as it says it up here, one that you could take your time with. Like even though it could be 45 minutes to an hour, it's the kind that you can pause and come back to later on when you want to finish it and stuff like that. Another one that falls into the good category, in my opinion, has to be All Dogs Go to Heaven Christmas Carol. I mean, I like the movie, don't get me wrong, and I'm glad that MGM added it as part of the complete series set because it pretty much not only serves as a adaptation of A Christmas Carol and as the Christmas special, but it serves as the finale to the series. It's a series, basically it's a series finale combined with, it's basically, how do I put this? It's a combination, it's a hybrid combination of, a series finale, Christmas Carol, and Christmas special. So it's got all those traits going for it, and it's the kind that you can come back and watch once in a while. And it does take the Christmas Carol concept, um, and runs its own little version with it. Long story short, what happens is Carface and Killer are minions of Belladonna, who is Annabelle's cousin. Basically, she's a purple devilish version of Annabelle, and she wants to destroy Christmas. And as part of the deal, she's going to let Carface and Killer keep all the presents that they have the dogs steal from the owners. And basically, Charlie and Itchy, they try their best to get the presents back until they realize that the only one that can probably fix all this is Carface himself. So they come up with the idea of, why not? Well, Charlie comes up with the idea of why not do a Christmas Carol? Because what happens is Itchy, because when Charlie suggests, do you think we could turn him into a bad guy? Itchy's like, he basically says, Carface, pff, he's a total Scrooge, and then that gives Charlie the idea of, oh, we can use this miracle dog tag that Annabelle supplies him with on missions to basically achieve that goal by basically making Carface live out his own real life Christmas Carol to get him to change his mind. And basically, even though it doesn't work with Itchy at first, and it doesn't really work with Sasha at first, Charlie, basically third time's a charm, it works with him because he's basically the representation of Christmas yet to come. But he doesn't show Carface. Well, he does, I think, kind of show Carface in a musical number. End up in the graveyard. But what he shows them instead is what will happen to this young Timmy character. Yes, there's a Timmy character who has a bad leg, who's a puppy. What will happen to him? If he if Carface, allows Belladonna to go through with her plan, and the plan involves a dog whistle, which can basically hypnotize all the dogs into giving whoever has that whistle, anything they want. And we get introduced to this whistle concept at the beginning because Carface wants some debts paid up to him right then and there on Christmas Eve, so he uses it to make that happen. And he uses it on Itchy, he uses it on Charlie, he uses it on Sasha and all the dogs at the bar. So basically, again, like I said, long story short, you know, Charlie thinks that Itchy just calling Carface a Scrooge, a total Scrooge. He comes up with a solution to, like I say, make Carface live out his own version of A Christmas Carol, which, spoiler, does kind of help and succeed in doing what it finally is supposed to do, and get, Carface to be the one to see and realize what, potentially, if not will happen if he goes through with this plan of Belladonna's. So it is a good one. You know, it's not above good, it's not semi-grade or great or best, but it's good enough to where you can pause it, come back and watch it. And if they wanted to, honestly, they could have put this into like a three-parter finale for the series if they wanted to do it in regular rotations. They could have done it that way too. But like I said, the reason it's on this list and the reason it's good and something you can, as I said up here, take your time to watch, is because it serves not only, because it basically, acts like three things. It acts as a series finale, a Christmas special, and and a decent Christmas Carol adaptation. It takes the concept, if you will. All right. So next up, what do we have for above good? Well, above good will basically be above good. I'm gonna have to go with Christmas Carol the movie. Now, this is an animated version. Well, it starts out live action and then it goes into animation, and it's a little bit of a different take on the Christmas Carol. I mean, basically, it's the same. It has the same kind of build. It's basically what I'm trying to say is it follows a different direction uh, than any other Christmas carols. Like for example, Jacob Marley, the ghost of Jacob Marley, voiced by Nicolas Cage, visits Scrooge in his office after Cratchit leaves, instead of in his home, and tells him about what's going to happen and everything. And then it kind of follows somewhat of the Christmas Carol pattern after Scrooge goes home and lies down and everything. After he has his gruel and you know his dinner and all that, and then he just lays down and rests. It kind of follows the version there. It kind of follows the well, not the yeah, basically it follows the the version of A Christmas Carol a little closer to the original, just a little closer, not much. And it does extend more on him, and I think Isabel's relationship extends more on it because we actually see, Isabel in the present day. We never seen her in the present day in other adaptations except for a few, but we see her here, and it's very good. I'll put it this way: it's above good. So I should have said, instead of saying above good, I should have said very good. But it's fine. But it's above good in many ways because, like I said, it still keeps the spirit of the Christmas Carol story true to what it is. But then it basically goes and focuses on characters we haven't seen get focused on that much in the original adaptations, like Isabel and all that. So it's decent for what it is. The animation is great. For their time on film, Kate Winslet, who does Isabel, and Nicolas Cage, who does Jacob Marley, I think do a great job. And if you ever have a chance to see it, if it ever comes on television this year, on streaming services or something, I do recommend checking it out. It's very good. It is a very good adaptation, above good adaptation, in my opinion. Another above good one, I would say, I'm gonna have to go with. Oh, here, let me replace this with this one. This is a better picture. There we go. That's Christmas Carol, the movie right there. That's one of the covers for it. But another above good one, I would have to say, is Looney Tunes. And I'm not talking the classic Bugs Bunny one because that was just a 7-minute adaptation, which I thought was okay, and my finger just hit the mic there. Sorry about that. I do apologize. But like I said, it's a decent adaptation. Um, the 7-minute one from the early '80s. But this one I want to talk about is the Ball Humduck one, and the Ball Humduck one, I think is really good. It's very good. Basically, it takes the concept of Christmas Carol and places it in the world of Looney Tunes. Mainly, the story is Daffy owns this big department store, retail store, and he is just basically pushing all his employees to the limit, and even getting to the point that he's going to force them to work on Christmas Day when they shouldn't. So it's like so, uh, and because of that, basically, it follows the motif of A Christmas Carol in some ways. I mean, yeah, Bugs gets involved in everything too. Bugs is in there, so he plays a part. But it's mainly Daffy's story. And the way it works out is you have all the characters playing different roles. Like you have Sylvester being Jacob Marley, or at least a version of Jacob Marley, but basically it's a partner. Basically he plays the Jacob Marley role. He's not named Jacob. You have Granny and Tweety as the ghost of Christmas past. You have Yosemite Sam as the ghost of Christmas present, and you have Tasmanian Devil as the ghost of Christmas future. And of course, this being a Looney Tunes adaptation, it's going to carry a lot of the Looney Tunes shenanigans, like, sort of similar to All Dogs Go to Heaven. It takes a while for basically a lot of the ghost lessons to really sink in on Daffy, and then even after it sinks in on him and all that, something happens. After he kind of shows that, hey, he's had a change of heart. He starts to kind of revert just briefly back to his greedy self, because that's mainly what it's focused on. Is he's so greedy he doesn't care if people miss Christmas or not. All he wants is money. And it does kind of get to that point that even after he has changed his ways, there's a little point during that change where he starts noticing everything and how everything is going, and then he starts, kind of reverting back a little bit to his greedy self until he gets snapped out of it. Um, but yeah, it's an above good Christmas Carol because, like I said, it takes the concept and it adds a Looney Tunes twist to it, basically, to where it's like, some of the ghosts, get infuriated with Daffy's stubbornness of not, learning the lesson, if you will. So it's similar to another one that I have seen, but it's one that you could watch, and you can consider an honorable mention because I don't have it on here, and that is A Christmas Cruella. It's very similar to that, to where you have basically Cadpig, Rolly, and Spot, being the ghost, representing the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future, trying to show Cruella exactly what was, what is, and what could be, unless she changes her way. So it's very similar in that kind of storytelling to where, it takes, the ghost here to show Daffy exactly what will happen to him if he doesn't change his ways, if he doesn't take the lessons to heart. Because, just like with the ghost here in the Looney Tunes one, Cat, Pig, Rolly, and Spot, they got a little frustrated, with, with Cruella because, she kept, not taking any of the lessons to heart or anything. So, basically, it it basically took them to show her what will happen in the future, at least the ghost, the future, to show them what's going to happen, to wake him up, or wake them up anyway. So, like I said, it's kind of in that category, if you will. Like I said, it shares that same storytelling. But to me, as much as I love 101 Dalmatians, the animated series, and I think Christmas Cruella is one you should watch, this to me kind of takes that same concept and, like I said, adds that Looney Tune twist, and goes goes a little above and beyond with it, because like I said, they kind of have Daffy, they kind of tease at the end that Daffy might revert back, but then he doesn't. With Cruella, her concept was, all she wanted was a puppy, and a Dalmatian puppy for Christmas, kind of similar to what you see in the Cruella movie. So, that was her main motivation for the way she changed and all that, but still, it's one of those things that, like I said, to me, that one's just slightly better than the other, and I have to give the edge very slightly to Looney Tunes, Bah Humbug, uh, Christmas Carol story. So, yeah, it's above good. It's one you can take your time and watch. Come back to every now and then. Um, Another one that I think you can take your time with, believe it or not, come back to, is Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol. I know it's considered as an all-time classic. I am not denying that. But to me, it's one that, even though it's 60 minutes, it feels longer than that, and it's one that you can come back and watch, at any time. Like, you can pause in a certain section and then come back and watch it later on. So to me, Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol falls in that category. It's good, it's above good, but like I said, it's one that, you can come back and watch time after time. And that's the thing about good and above good, and maybe I have to edit that in here, in the description. But good and above good are the kinds that you can come back and watch, you know, time after time. But the slight difference with above good is you can pause it, go get a drink, like eggnog, soda, whatever, coffee, hot chocolate, come back, and you can finish watching it, right then and there, almost like in one sitting. So it's like if you can pause, go get a drink, you can pause, go get the mail, pause, use the restroom, come back, watch it. There you go. The good is basically you could stop it where it's at, go take care of stuff, go to the store, whatever, and then come back and watch it later on. Like if you want to watch something to relax to, or while you're eating dinner, you could do that too. That's kind of what good is compared to above good, to where above good is the kind where you can pause, do something in the house, real quickly, like I mentioned, get something to drink, snack on, go to the bathroom, whatever, check mail, and then unpause it and watch. And Mr. Magoo's Christmas Carol falls in that category because, again, to me, it's one of those that feels like it's, even though it's an hour, it feels longer. It feels longer than that. Now we get to semi-great. Semi-great is basically one that you get, or basically the kind that you can watch in one sitting without pausing. Like you have everything set and ready to go. They're the one sitting viewings. So these are they fall in that category. And they're the kind that you can come back and watch maybe a few days later, once again, in one sitting. It's like you can do a repeat viewing of it like 2, 3 days later, and just like the first viewing, you can watch it without getting up. And to me, one of those, without a shadow of a doubt, is the Bill Murray adaptation Scrooge. And the reason I say that is because when this came out, it was like a different take on the story entirely because it is set in modern days. It, Bill Murray, of course, plays the title character. That's the Scrooge of that time, and it is just perfect. It is just like you. It's one of those films that you get yourself ready, you get yourself, a can of soda or beer, or a cup of eggnog or whatever. Get some popcorn, get some dinner, and it's the kind that you could sit and watch all the way through without any interruption. And it's the kind that you come back and watch maybe a couple of days later in the same way. And it's just perfect. It is just perfect, all the way through. And the way they take the story too is instead of just showing what's going to happen, what's happened in the past, what's happened in the present, and what's going to happen in the future, the way they do it is he shows, like with the future, he sees the consequences of his actions has reflected onto those that he's looked at first as not being in that kind of mindset. Now they are because of him. So it's a definitely a different take, like I said, and it's one that you could sit down and watch in one viewing, and then come back and watch in one viewing again a couple of days later, if not a week later. Another one that falls into that category, believe it or not, is a Flintstones Christmas Carol. Flintstones Christmas Carol is one of those, again, just like with Scrooge. You could sit down, you could watch in one viewing, come back and watch in one viewing a few days later, if not a week later. And it's a great, it's a, when I look at this, it's a great blending of two things. One of the things about, um, one of the things about the Flintstones is when a story would call, basically when a story would call for the Flintstones, like mostly Fred, to be involved in something like singing, act, in this case acting or whatever, he lets his ego get the best of him. And this story is no different. But what they do here, though, that makes it unique, is they take the way he's acting because he's letting it go to his head because he's got the lead role of Scrooge. They basically blend reality with fantasy. So in other words, he's basically, in reality, in the eyes of everybody around him, including Wilma, he's becoming a real life Scrooge, and nobody sees it but him until basically, everybody points out exactly why they view him, acting like this, why they believe he's becoming this way. Because he's letting this go to his head and not realizing, oh, this is just community theater. Because Fred's mindset is this is just the first step to Broad Rock, if you will, the interpretation of Broadway. And he's his mind because his mindset is in that mode. He doesn't realize the way he's acting. He's blinded by the promise of superstardom, and not realizing that this is just a one night community theater deal, and that's it. So it's again, it's one of those you can watch in one sitting, get a kick out of it. I love the fact that Wilma, to really I guess you could say beat it home for Fred. She's basically tasked in playing several parts. Not she's not just like the community, not just I guess you could say the director, the coordinator of of the play, but she's also now, because because one of the running gags in this, one of the, well, I wouldn't say gags, but one of the subplots in this is there's a flu going around. Kind of like, and I don't want to use this as a comparison, but kind of like what we had with the pandemic, with the COVID. Basically, it's not like the COVID, where the COVID is mostly like a 2 week deal, or is a 2 week situation. But this is a more, but it's kind of similar in the fact that this is a bug that they have to deal with for 24 hours until until it goes away. So what happens, and what makes this a great adaptation or take on it, by blending the reality of the characters involved playing the parts of the characters in the story, is Wilma, like I said, who is basically the coordinator, the director of the play. She is now tasked with being several different characters. She's tasked with being the Ghost of Christmas Past, and she's tasked with being Belle, Isabel. Yeah, she's tasked with being those two roles. So, um, so yeah, and it really drives home, the the weight of the situation to Fred finally when they get to that moment where in the story in Christmas Carol where Scrooge and Belle break up, and then Fred, after they take an intermission to change out a costume and everything, he comments to Barney that when Wilma was playing Belle's part during the breakup, that the tears coming down were seemed very real. And so when he goes to ask Wilma what's going on, he hears her crying, and then Betty confronts him and basically pretty much tells her right to his face exactly one of the reasons, or one of the main reasons why she's upset, why she's crying. And then it just dawns on him finally, you know, she just dawns on him finally that he's letting this go to his head. And it actually takes the story itself to wake him up and make him realize. And he even has to tell Wilma this because she has to take on a small part of one of those what is it, town collectors and everything, one of those collectors for the poor. She has to take on one of their parts because they got the flu. And what happens is, he has to tell her in a whisper that he's changed, and he really has. Basically saying that not just the character in the story has changed, but he has as well. Like he understands now that this is not a trip to the big time or anything. This is just community theater, and I shouldn't have let my ego get the best of me. He's basically saying he's sorry, and it takes the entire situation on and off stage to make him realize that. And I think again, that's what makes it one of those adaptations of A Christmas Carol that you can watch in one sitting, come back and watch again in one sitting a couple of days later or a week later. It's that good. It is that good, in my opinion. All right. So the next one that's good for one sitting, in my opinion, it has to be Muppet Christmas Carol. It has to be that one. And I know a lot of people like it, and it is a Muppet adaptation with the Muppets playing, certain parts like Piggy and Kermit as the Cratchits. Gonzo is Charles Dickens. You got these puppets that they made for Christmas past, present, and future, which are tremendous. Can't really enjoy how great how great of a work that they did on those. And it does stay true. It's one of the truer adaptations. Not much, but one of the truer adaptations, and it is, just because of that. Just because of that. And Michael Caine does a great performance as Scrooge in this. But just because of that, it's one of those that, like Flintstones, like the Scrooge movie, that you can watch in one sitting, come back and watch it again a few days later, if not a week later. It's that good. And I don't think I can say any more than that. As it's like I said, one of those that you can watch in one sitting, and not get up or anything because you don't want to miss a thing, and then you can come back and watch it a few days later, if not a week later. And do the same thing. Watch it in one sitting, not miss a thing. All right. So now we're going to get to great. In great, I'm going to start with this one. This is Disney's Christmas Carol. This is the one with Jim Carrey, the one that had motion capture. I think it is tremendous adaptation. Some have, recognized it as being one of the closest that we've had to the original source material. It does take certain, elements and, kind of goes a little further with them, a little edgier with them. Like with the Ghost of Christmas Past, I mean not past but present, when he's laughing and everything, he's just out before he disappears, he laughs and everything before he basically turns himself into a skeleton laughing, which freaked a lot of people out. So it's it. So yeah, that was a real surprise. That was like a real twist that nobody saw coming. And overall, when you get down to it, the animation is perfect. And again, the story is one of the closest takes on it that anybody has ever seen. And like I said, going as far as doing what they did, with the Ghost of Christmas Present at the end before he disappears. and everything, and what they do otherwise. It's just tremendous, just a job well done, and it's a great story that you can watch, in one sitting, not once but twice a day. Like you can watch it in the morning if you want to. If you want to watch something to keep you busy before you get up and do stuff that afternoon, and you can watch it in the evening if you want to watch something while you're eating dinner or relaxing, eating dessert or whatever. It's that kind of a movie that, unlike, the ones I mentioned before in the, semi-great, where you can watch them in one sitting one day and then watch them in one sitting a couple of days later or a week later. These you can watch in one sitting, like I said, once or twice a day and not get bored with it because you'll not want to miss a thing because they're that good. Another one that falls into that category, of course, is Mickey's Christmas Carol. For 30 minutes, it's actually a decent adaptation. It does take all the story elements, runs with them, changes things up a bit, not much. Well, I wouldn't say not much, but they change them up a bit to where basically what Mickey's Christmas Carol is it's the kind of great adaptation that, again, you can watch once or twice a day in one sitting and not get bored with it. But what it also does is it gets you invested to want to read the original source material. Like, when you see it, when you see it for the first time, you know, if you've never seen it before, if you've seen it for the first time, you're like, well, wait a minute, where does, this, why is he suddenly breaking up with Isabel or Belle? What's going on there? Or what's this or what's that? It makes you want to read the entire original story to get the full gist of, and weight of the situation, in my opinion. So it's a great adaptation. Really great. Another great adaptation, believe it or not. Yeah, so I just think, looking at some, I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything. So another great adaptation, believe it or not, is My Little Pony: A Heartwarming Tale. My Little Pony: A Heartwarming Tale is great because it. I think Salplex said it best in her worst to best two-part countdown of the Christmas Carol adaptations, which I recommend you guys check out. She said it best that, you know this is taking the concept, not just the story itself, but the concept, and wrapping it around their version of Christmas, which is called Heartwarming Eve. And I think they did a great job. I mean, the way the animation is done. I mean, the animation is decent. Is well, the animation was and is decent from those first few seasons, first 5 seasons, in which this takes place in season 6. So first 5.5 seasons, if you will, when this episode comes around. But the animation here obviously was taken to another level. You could see that. You could see that they, just like with Best Gift Ever, you could tell that they took their time with this one. You could tell they put a lot of time and effort into this one, and that is why everybody considers it a very, I wouldn't say faithful adaptation, but a very decent adaptation by taking the concept and wrapping it around their own story, if you will. Basically making it, their own thing. Like basically it's not like, word for word, scene by scene, but you get the idea, you get the gist of it right off the bat, and everybody, as Celpex put it, are brilliantly cast because Applejack being the ghost of Heartwarming Past, I think is perfect. Pinky being the one to go Heartwarming Present is terrific. The song she has as well is great. And the Ghost of Heartwarming Future being Luna, I mean, who better to cast in that role? You know, and each of them have a song. All these songs are great. All these songs are great. I mean, Applejack's Seeds of the Past, where she does a little bit of a duet with Starlight doing it, is great. Pinkie Pie's song is terrific, perfect Christmas-like song you can listen to anytime during Christmas. I mean, it's the kind of song that, if a radio station was to choose, to play a random list of Christmas songs, and they said, okay, let's take this Pinkie Pie one and put it on there, nobody would realize that it's from My Little Pony Friendship is Magic until somebody that's a fan of the show or researched it spoke up and said, yeah, that's from the sixth season. When they did the adaptation of A Christmas Carol called Heartwarming Tale. So, and then Luna's, of course, what more can you say about Luna's future song? That's just tremendous. And again, like I said, the visuals are, upped, a bit from the standard visuals we got before. So, it is one of those that basically you can watch in one sitting, in the morning or someone during the day when you're eating lunch or whatever, and you can come back later on that day, that evening, and watch it again in one sitting. It's that good. And to me, when it comes to taking the concept, of the Christmas Carol story and running with it, with your own version of Christmas for your characters or with your character's own version of Christmas, I think this is one of the better versions of that period. So yeah, it's one of those that again you can watch it once in the day and then once later on in the day or the evening in one sitting without missing anything. All right, so let's get to the best. And the best by far, ladies and gentlemen, the best by far. Are you ready for this? Are Christmas Carol 1984 with George C. Scott, which a lot of people consider one of the best adaptations, even though it was made for television. A lot of people consider it one of the best, word for word, scene by scene, book by book. It is one of the best. One of the best in existence, and people, enjoy watching it every Christmas. It's like you can't imagine a Christmas without this being on television and people sitting through it and watching it and then putting it on repeat, watching it again. It's one of those that you go back to back with. That, and of course, the one that people consider the definitive adaptation, the 1950s version. The 1950s version, in fact, let me get a better picture instead. The 1950s version, right here. People consider this one to be the definitive version to where you put it alongside the George C. Scott one, and it is just, tremendous. It is just tremendous in its own right. It's word for word, scene by scene, a great adaptation, a true adaptation. I mean, I remember this playing last year during Christmas when we were at my second oldest sister's in Modesto, and we were watching it all the way through, or most of it, and you could tell that they drew directly from the book, scene by scene, word for word. So to me, the best to cap off this tier list on my look at what I consider the best to good adaptations, if you will, or good to best, whatever you want to call it. It's got to be Christmas Carol, 83, and the 1950s one as well. So with that said, let's take a look at the list. Again, the good, which is, you know, basically being like take your time to watch it. Like you could pause it or you could stop it, come back to it later on, like maybe the next day or whatever. The ones that are good in that department are Stingiest Man on Earth and All Dogs Christmas Carol. Above good is the kind that you can watch, pause, come back to it later on in the day if you feel like it. Those are Christmas Carol the movie, the animated one, Ball Humduck, and Mr. McGoo's Christmas Carol. The semi-great are the ones that you can watch, pause, get up, get something to drink, use the bathroom, whatever, come back and unpause and not miss a thing. And that's Scrooge, Flintstones Christmas Carol, and Muppet's Christmas Carol. Then great are the kinds that you can watch in one sitting. Come back again later on in the day and watch again in one sitting, so you can watch it once or twice in one sitting and all that. A day, not like the next day or anything, but a day. You can watch it all the way through without missing a thing, once or twice a day. Those are the motion captured Disney's Christmas Carol, Mickey's Christmas Carol, and My Little Pony Friendship is Magic's Heart's Warming Tale, their take on Christmas Carol. And then the ones that you could watch back to back, like after it's done, you can play it again and watch it again over and over, are the 1983-84 Christmas Carol with George C. Scott and the 1950s Scrooge Christmas Carol story as well. So yeah, that's pretty much the ones that I think let me make sure I get the right image so you guys are not like that's Scrooge. But these are the ones basically that, like I said, you can watch back to back to back, you know, and not want to miss a thing because they're considered to be that good. And this one, is considered the true one of the true, if not the true, definitive adaptation of Christmas Carol. So anyway, though, guys, that's going to be about it for my adaptations of a Christmas Carol tier list from best to good, or good to best, whatever you want to call it. Let me know what your thoughts are. Comment down below. Love to hear from each and every one of you. And I am